oh right, I'm going to quit my job and I'm just going to decide what I'm going to do, because that's not going to work either, and that puts extra pressure on you, and that extra pressure means that it's setting yourself up almost for a failure.
Welcome to Bigger Than Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their lives outside their business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, the habits, the disciplines, and the mindsets that made them successful in their life, which in turn leads to success in their business. Now, today we're going to be talking everything social media and life, of course. I've got Amana on with me, and she is a social media expert. So I'll be picking her brain because I don't know so much about that, and I'm sure everyone listening, there'll be a lot of knowledge that we can transfer to you as well. So without further ado, hi Amana.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. So if I can just hand the mic over to you, can you give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and then we can go with the conversation from there.
Yeah, sure. So I am a social media manager or social media consultant. I provide mainly small to medium-sized businesses with help for specifically Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So I've been doing this for nearly 3 years. I just retrained as a social media manager a couple of years ago after working in corporate for over 12 years, and decided that I wanted to change. And it's something I really enjoyed doing. I've always liked marketing. I've always been involved in marketing. So doing social media was just something that just felt sort of natural to me. I retrained and I started up taking clients, and I've just not looked back since. It's been really great.
That's awesome. And I like it that you did it in a way where, like you said, you're corporate. So there's a lot of obviously gain of knowledge and understanding and things you can learn doing the corporate route. And then flipping that into your own journey and using the knowledge and the skills you gained to help people with, whichever avenue for you, obviously, social media. So let's start from there then. So, with social media, obviously things are changing so quickly all the time. How do you keep yourself updated with all the changes that continuously are happening?
Well, I find that the thing is, one of the things that working in a corporate atmosphere is you don't realize what it's like as a small business or working in the small business world. One of the things I thought, one of the misconceptions is I wouldn't learn as many things working on my own. Working for myself, I wouldn't have that continual learning journey. And I always kind of thought the corporates knew a lot more than maybe the small businesses. And when I started up myself, I realized that is totally wrong, because small business, actually, they're continually learning at a faster pace and are probably actually further ahead than those corporates. And how I keep up to date and learning is I'm really lucky, because the training course that I did, there were lots of people that graduated and they all got put in like a Facebook group together. And there are loads and loads of Facebook groups that I'm part of and paid memberships that I'm also part of that basically keep you consistently up to date on what's happening in social media. One group that I'm a paid membership that I've got is particularly good because I get basically live updates via an app called Telegram, which basically sends me whenever something news happened in social media. So I do keep up to date. It actually is relatively easy to keep up to date in that way, especially when you've got a community of people who are constantly saying, have you seen this? Have you heard this? So for me, the rapid changing, the way that social media changes so rapidly is actually manageable in a way that I didn't think it would be.
Now, obviously, I'm also a small business owner, so I've been running my own business for 20 years. And I've seen like when I started my business, there was no internet as such. Like there was Google, but it wasn't used as it is now, and we've gone right through to without the internet, almost like I have nothing to do. So it's an interesting time that as a small business owner, you have to adapt and adapt again and adapt again and adapt again. And that's how I think, especially in this country, there's a lot of entrepreneurs. And this is how this country thrives, I think, because of the ability to just take the changes and move on, right? Even in the situation we're in right now, we're in a pandemic situation where everything locked down. Even my business was closed, and I've never been in that situation where a retail business was closed. But again, adapt, turn, move on, because unless you do that, you die, and I can see a lot of large organizations that have struggled with the changes because to to, it's like a monster having to move, right? Like a dinosaur having to move.
Exactly.
With a small business, we're quite agile. We can make changes very quickly and move on, right? And I'm sure you see that dealing with the business owners that you deal with, that we're quite a resourceful bunch. We can sort of just work things out on the fly, right? So during this situation, how have you had to adapt and change, and how you deal with things? Obviously, technology is coming a lot more, right? But were you more face to face, or have you always been sort of very technology?
Well, I've always been, because I work remotely, so for me it's not such a big deal. But obviously for some of my clients, who one of them did face-to-face trainings, one of them were like, I've got somebody who does psychotherapy, so she would do one-to-one, so she moved hers onto Zoom quite easily, online sessions, which was easy enough. But the lady, one of the things that I was always thinking of was like, oh my God, like I might be all right, but if the businesses that I work for aren't, the first thing they're going to start looking at is cutting costs. And I was actually quite lucky in the fact that the ones that I did lose 2 clients, but during the time I actually gained 2 bigger clients. So I was quite lucky, but I also started to, it gave me, losing those 2 clients at the very beginning of lockdown actually gave me more time to focus on what I'd been trying to do, but just didn't have enough time to do. So I was currently doing one-to-one training workshops, and they were all online anyway. And what I had want to do was to do group ones, so I could offer them at a cheaper rate, but train groups of people. And I just was like, yes, I'll get round to it. And then when I kind of lost those clients, I was like, actually, I can just adapt what I already have on my one-to-one workshops, already have all of those things together. If I just adapt those and sort of streamline those for group ones, I could do that quite quickly. And since the beginning of the pandemic, I've ran 4 group workshops. So for me, that it's worked really nicely. I've got to be able to do something I wanted to do. And because mine was online anyway, I wasn't going to be majorly affected unless, that I was with were majorly affected. So for me, I think it's worked a lot better. My business has grown substantially during the lockdown.
Now, social media is, if we look at sort of the world of marketing, it's obviously the newest thing, in terms of the way the industry is developed, right? Where do you think this growth has come from? Because social media initially was obviously a social tool where people interact with people. And then obviously business jumped into that and then gave a softer face to the hard face normally businesses had with social media. So where do you think, first of all, how it's grown in importance? Why do you think it's grown in importance so much? And where do you think it's actually going to be evolving into then sort of the next generation of social media? How do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's worked really well. I think what social media has done for bigger businesses is it's given them a way of talking to their audiences that's not, where audiences can actually talk back to them. That's never been done before. There's never been an occasion where you can actually talk back to your customers as well. So that's worked really well. As well as it's given people the opportunity to learn about those businesses. So those big companies, they can see Louis Vuitton did in their Instagram stories, they do a kind of behind the scenes bit as well. And they show a different side of their character, whereas normally you have to have quite strict brand guidelines, but to be able to show behind the scenes, show a bit of your character and show people what is interesting about you actually makes the companies more approachable and more likable. And that is what social media has done for those businesses. And where I see it going is that people want more, there's loads of choices in the world of products that you can buy, of services that you can have. But those ones that you're more affiliated with, that you've grown to like and understand because you've been following them for a number of months, years, however long it is, those ones are the ones you're going to automatically levitate towards when you do decide to make your purchase, because you're like, well, actually, I don't know what it is. I don't need a new sofa right now, but I follow a sofa company because they posted something that was quite interesting and I started following them. And when it comes to my turn for sofa purchases, I'm like, well, I already follow them. I already believe in what they're saying. I believe in they're authentic. They're all the things that I like and they've got a good product range. They're the natural choice. There won't be a need to look around anywhere else because you already kind of follow someone that you're interested in.
And obviously that's with big business, right? Now so I'm a small business owner, and a lot of people that listen to this are entrepreneurs, so they run their business very, like single person or within 10 people, now, what advice could you give to people like me? Because I'm not that great on social media in terms of for my business, because I've been going so long. It's a lot of it's recommendation existing customers. We almost use it more like a portfolio as opposed to an actual way of. What would you say to someone like me that doesn't really use it that effectively, I don't think, to try and step up my thought or my game in the social media presence?
The first thing about social media and marketing in general is really about understanding your customer. So I would say fully understand your customer, because if you have a customer client base that's 65 plus, you're like, okay, social media isn't necessarily going to be the right target. They're not going. That's not where my target audience is. You have to think about the social media platforms where your target audience are, and if you start all of your marketing based on where your customers are and having a clear understanding of them, it makes all marketing a lot easier. So in terms of social media, it would be what type of platforms are you going to find your clients and find your ideal customers on. You look at that, but then you need to understand that social media is about actually brand awareness. It's not necessarily tactical marketing. So you do a post on Instagram, for example, and you expect to see an uplift in sales. That's not going to happen. What it does is it gets brand awareness, and it puts you on a level of brand marketing with the big boys. So you are on that same platform that they're doing. You can have maybe not the same level of following, but potentially the same level of following for not spending very much money on to get those people interested in your product. So one of the things I say to all of my clients is that they need to have a clear understanding of that social media marketing is about brand marketing. So it's being front of mind all the time, and that purchase will happen, but it may not happen right now. It may happen in a year's time. It may happen in 6 months' time. But if the customer doesn't know you, it doesn't understand you, it's not seeing you, then how are they going to purchase? So that's what brand marketing does. So that's why it's actually key for small businesses to do that. And I've worked with small businesses that have that, but we've been posting and I've not seen an uplift in sales. And I come back and I say, that's not going to happen. There's a whole journey of social media for that in order for that to happen. And a whole journey of marketing, and social media only forms one part of that, but it's an integral part of your strategy. So don't expect to see sales to turn around straight away. But I've definitely had lots of my clients have had seen a turnaround, and when they've asked, so, sorry, where did you hear about us? I was following you on Instagram. I saw your post on Instagram. I heard about you on Twitter. I saw you on Facebook. And that's when they start to see the value in actually social media.
So it's all the touch points, right? So it's all the different sort of areas
exactly
people use, right?
Yeah.
So how, because social media now has become quite noisy. So there's a lot, especially with the lockdown happened and a lot of people are at home or working away. So there's a lot more interaction on social media. And there seems to be a lot more noise in terms of, what you see and how much content you see. So as a small business, what kind of tips can you give to try and give some cut through to this stuff that's already on there to try and make yourself or get your head above that?
I would say consistency is key. So on a platform like Instagram, for example, people think consistency means like, oh my God, I've got to post twice a day or every day. You don't have to. You can post less time. So you can post maybe 4 times a week. You won't see the growth as fast, but you can still post 4 times a week and still see very, very good growth. I do that for my clients. But what you need to do is that you need to have that level of consistency. So if it's 4 times a week, you need to be posting those 4 times a week. You need to understand, this is where we go back to understanding who your customers are. If your customers are in the age group of 30 to 39, for example, you need to think about, so what does that customer look like, and what are they also going to be looking at, and what are they going to be interested in? And that's key to getting good social media posts. And then you have an understanding. You can, okay, so they're interested in, for example, for me, if I look at my social media posts on Instagram in particular, I would say I have 3 main elements I talk about. I talk about giving tips, on how to run your social media yourself. I do testimonials about my business so people can see, and I try and build authority by giving hacks. So tips are one thing, but giving like, oh, here's a quick way of doing this is another way. And those 3 levels of content I continually post. That means that I'm again thinking about my audience, my customers, and saying, I'm posting something that's specifically relevant for them. They're not going to follow me because I'm posting pictures of my kids or my dog or whatever it is. They want to follow me because I'm giving them free tips and insights and that they can't get elsewhere. Also, I'm engaging with other businesses or with other people. That's really key. So consistency, engagement are 2 really key points of good social media, as well as understanding your customer. That's how you get ahead as a small business, really.
And I found that having a plan as well, right? Knowing from the start what you're trying to achieve, because a lot of the time you can just post and post and post and actually have no purpose to doing these things. You think, well, because everyone said that I have to post, I'm just going to post, as opposed to thinking, okay, this week I'm going to structure 4 posts. It's going to be about this. I'm going to diary it at this time. And I know there's a lot of tools out there now where you can sort of do them all in one day, and then it just automatically posts and stuff for you. And I think that for me, that seemed to work quite well, because you allocate maybe 2 hours, for example, do your content, put your post together, and then leave it, and it's just done, right?
Exactly.
And I think running, like I said, there's so many pockets of time you get pulled into running your business. You'll probably know that it's not just doing the work, but all the admin as well, and all the other things, phone calls, emails, and trying to fit things in. And unless you have the structure, it doesn't work, does it? It's very bitty, and then you fall off it, and then you come back, and then you fall off, and you come back, and it's just, there's no consistency. And then I don't think
and that's
right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's key, is about having that level of consistency. And I think I run training workshops, and what I say at the end of the workshop is, on a Sunday evening or whatever it is you have free time, just think about the post. If you're going to post 4 times a week, think about 8 posts. So I've got 2 weeks worth of posts already sorted out. Think about those things that are going to add value. So for me, it would be, make sure I put a couple of tips in there, make sure I put some customer testimonials in there, make sure I put a couple of hacks in, those sort of things. And I have those things that I know I'm going to talk about. That really helps to know that, okay, I've got 3 buckets of things. I just need to put 1 post in each of those buckets, and I've got basically my week's worth of posts done. It makes it a lot more manageable, because it's that social media overwhelm you can feel if you don't make it manageable by just planning, and that really, really works and helps.
It was interesting, before we started the conversation, you mentioned you've got young kids.
Yes.
Super young. And
yeah.
3. So now, stepping out of the professional side of your business, right?
Yeah.
Social media's had a little bit of bad reputation or bad press in terms of young people, right? So my daughter is 14, and recently there's been issues that we've faced as well in terms of sort of like, comparison and body image and these things, which, because the young mind, for me, is always said, is not ready to deal with these in the way an adult would deal with it. So I use it as a tool. So I'll switch it on, use it as a tool, and switch it off, because that's the way I understand it. Whereas I know a lot of people can get drawn into it and can be quite emotionally tied to what they see, when it's may not be real, or they don't have the ability to question whether things are real or not real, right? So you having young kids and them, obviously, what age are your children?
Mine are a bit young. I've got a almost 8-year-old and a 6-year-old.
No, not far then.
And then a 1-year-old. Yeah, yeah.
You've done well so far.
Yeah.
So when they go into high school, so that's when my daughter got a phone, because she was getting the bus and things on the phone, and there, those exposures will start happening. Even though we try and limit so much, there's certain freedom that we need to give them as a grown up, right? So actually, we trust you, but you need to understand what this is about. So what have been your insights into sort of young people and social media, and how do you think as a parent that you're going to try and counteract that?
I don't know if anyone's ever watched that. Have you watched that documentary on Netflix? I think it's called The Social Dilemma. It's actually all about that, and about how it basically talks about social media and actually more the negative side of it. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But one of the things that it did say that resonated with me is that we've got a generation of kids that are growing up without ever knowing anything but social media. If you think about it, their parents would have been posting pictures of them as babies on social media. I think that it's really important is to limit that time that they have and ground your children. I don't think anyone is going to have the right 100% the right answer themselves, because we've never been in this situation before where there's been something like this and our kids have had to grow up in this. But I know from my perspective, I constantly reinforce my daughter, especially with the messages of, you know what, it's what makes you feel good. Don't worry what other people are doing. I know it's difficult as a kid. You'll be like, yeah, well, all right, fair enough. But I'm trying to ground that message in her quite early, about the way she looks, and not to be fazed by that, and not to be worried what other people are doing. I was like, you need to concentrate on, because she says stuff every now and then. I'm like, well, you need to concentrate on what you're doing, and don't worry about what other people are doing. And so I try and start that off quite early to ground them as much as I can, because when they do go to school, they will have, when they go to high school, they will end up having a phone, and then, you lose that sort of element of being able to control them. But it is a worry. I do see that, kids are, on social media. And I saw this, my husband showed me a great quote the other day, and I can't remember it fully, but it was something around that nowadays, people are striving for perfection so much. It's so easy to make yourself look perfect that reality is becoming undesirable. Real is becoming undesirable. And that's really resonated with me, actually, because I was like, that's so true, that people, people make stuff on social media look amazing when it necessarily isn't, and that isn't their life. But I think that's up to us to remind them that, in the same way as TV did that. TV did that, made a product, made a person look amazing. But we didn't all start, well, maybe we did, but start thinking, okay, I have to be like that. You get that from your environment as well. And I think that's really important, to ground children and give them the understanding that what you see anywhere else isn't necessarily real. What's real is living. That's real. What you see with your eyes outside, that's real, not necessarily what you see on a screen.
And I think I'm so glad, or I'm so blessed that I grew up. You're probably not far that behind me, but I grew up at a time when there was no social media, there was no phones, there was 4 channels on the TV, and all our information was sourced from either people we knew, so like family and friends, school, or like you said, a limited amount of TV. And we were allowed to grow up organically, so we were allowed to grow up, make mistakes, fall down, and there was no real spotlight on us, right? And now it seems like there's a spotlight on all the time. There's information that's bombarding these small brains with so much information all the time that it's almost like, what do I do with all this? See, they don't know how to filter out and stop this, right? And and then when you put the mix of high school in there, and you've got the where they're still trying to figure themselves out, and then you've got a whole load of other kids that are trying to figure themselves out, and they're putting all into the mix, and then you put a phone in their hand, and it's like chaos, right? Chaos.
It's crazy.
And obviously it's the social currency side as well. So the other alternative, okay, you don't give them a phone, but then there's a part of life which is, where you want to feel a part of something, right? You don't want to be the outcast all the time. And as parents, we can say, no, it's good for you not to have this until you're older. But then when everyone around them, their friends and everyone is on these kind of devices, and they have these things, their social currency will be zero if they don't have something to talk about, or somewhere to align, right? At the end of the day, we just all want to belong, right? Especially at a age, we just want to be a part of the group or be part of the clan. And when you feel that you're not, or maybe, your parents are not giving you the certain things that don't allow you to be a part of a certain group, especially like you said with my daughter. So she's just started, she's in GCSEs now, but she's part of that. But it's a battle all the time, and we're trying, like you said, reinforcing those conversations with them. But there's so much that I've always said, I want her to make mistakes. I want her to fall down to stand back up again, because that's the only way I feel she's going to learn. And then, some mistakes are going to be harder, some falls are going to be harder. But then when you get up, there'll be so much more learning part of that. And me as parent can stand by and give some information, but at some point I have to let that go to say, I've done as much as I can and I'm constantly here and constantly to support, but at certain points you're going to have to go out and find out yourself. And it's hard, in that you know yourself, there is no rule book, right? As a parent, we don't know, but we just try and do the best we can, right? With the knowledge that we have. Now let's rewind a bit. Growing up, so did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got 2 older brothers.
Your older brother, fine. So, growing up and then being in that sort of mix, there's so much of you that shapes your personality, which it is now, which is, like you said, the marketing, the social side of things. So where do you think that's come from, the interest in what you do today?
I don't know. It's a good question, actually, where that's come from. I've always, my parents were, had their own business. So my mum then decided to work as well. So she had her own job. So it was kind of like, I kind of always enjoyed that entrepreneurial side of things. My interest in marketing probably came, my degree was, when I went to university, I did a business and accounting degree, actually, but the marketing side of things, whenever we did marketing modules, I was really interested in, because there's kind of like a psychology associated with marketing as well. And that really interested me, how people purchase things, the way that things are messaged to you, that all really interested me. And when I started working, I then kind of was drawn to that sort of being interested in marketing, and I ended up doing like a secondment role in marketing, which I loved in my job. And it was I basically grew that interest in marketing, and the job that I was at for like 12 years was actually quite different to what I do. It's like a strategy manager, and it was dealing with pricing. But I had such a close relationship with our marketing department, and I found I was naturally saying to them, well, why don't you do it this way? Or why don't you do that? Or and they were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So I kind of built that. I really just sort of built on that interest in marketing. And when an opportunity for doing retraining in social media came up, I was like, well, that sounds quite interesting. And I'm quite decisive. And once I've decided, I'm like, that's it. I just researched a course, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hand my notice in. And my husband was like, okay. I said, I'm going to hand my notice in and I'm going to do this course. And I was kind of like thinking, yeah, I'll do it. And then we went on holiday and we came back. I said, right, I'm going to do it. He was just like, okay, fine. So I handed my notice in, and that interest from marketing has just always been there. I think once I studied it, I kind of got it, sort of just interested me so much that I learned about it as well when I was working.
And it's interesting you said that both your parents were entrepreneurs as well, so they had their own business and things like that. Do you think that's what made it easier for you to decide to set up your own business, because you'd been exposed to all around it from an early age?
I don't think so, because my dad had his own shop, his own retail shop. So for me, I never associated that with being, and when I was younger, I definitely didn't associate that with being as an entrepreneur. But what I did, I think my main interest came from, when I was in my early 20s, I went on a trip to Pakistan with my family, and there was this amazing woman who'd done these amazing designer clothes, and she just opened her first shop. And I went there, and my cousin knew her and was just like, oh, let's go and have a look at it. And I went there thinking, yeah, whatever. And when I saw it and I went in, I was like, oh my God, these clothes are amazing. This stuff is amazing. And I was like, this could work really well in England. Why don't I just try and speak to her and get her to, open a shop or do something in here? And that's actually what happened. I had a conversation with her. My cousin introduced us, and then we had a meeting, and she was like, yeah, right, let's see what we could do. And there happened to be a massive exhibition in Birmingham in the NEC. And I was like, let's get a stand. And we got a stand, and I totally loved selling the clothes. I just fell in love with every element of that. And I think that spurred me on. I was like, I was on a different planet. I was just like, this is amazing. I love doing this. And I think that's where it came from. And then knowing that I wanted to do something for myself and have my own business, that just solidified it for me. And then it was just finding what I wanted to do. That's what took time, is that then from there to, me leaving my job, that was like many years. And I was like, well, what is it I want to do? And then you get comfortable in a job, and then I had kids, and then, everything changed. But then in my heart, I always knew I really want my own business. I really want to do something for myself.
And it's interesting that you actually took that step. So like you said, life can sometimes just get in the way, right? What I mean by that is like, okay, so I'm in this corporate role and I'm earning money and things seem okay. So, you get married, you get a house, you got mortgage, you have these things going on. And then, like you said, then the kids get thrown into the mix and you're like, okay, so I don't think there'll ever be a right time to set up my own business because I've got all these pressures on me. So to still take that step, I think is really brave, because like you said, there's so many other pressures that dictate that actually maybe it'll never be the right time. But like, anything in life, it's never the right time. You just have to decide and go with it, right? And I think you just have to have faith and ability in yourself and your own attributes. Say, I can do this, and I know I will, and I know I'll be successful because I've got the right mindset to do it. So there's a lot of people, that young people or older people, that are looking to set up their own business, that listen to this. What kind of advice would you give them, that if they think their situation is not in the right place right now or whatever? And I always say it's never the right place. You just have to decide. And once you make a decision, then things will start opening up. But until you decide, nothing's going to open up. What advice would you give to people that are listening?
I would say it's about planning. For me, it was really about planning. So the only reason an idea can ever come to fruition is actually if you plan it and think, well, so for me, it was more of the financial side. So I'm very comfortable in my job, doing well, giving all of that up. What am I going to do? So I had to think, how can I need to actually plan to have some sort of financial stability in order to be able to take that first step. And I just spoke to my husband, and I put lots of different plans in place to say, actually, if I do this, I am going to be able to, in theory, if that all goes right, I can actually give up my job. And I'll have to make some sacrifices. I can't live the same standard that I was before, but they're not going to be major sacrifices. I'm not saying we're going to eat beans every day. I'm saying, I'll just have to adapt my shopping habit, my, all the things that I did and all the things that I was more extravagant on, and think, well, I just need to adapt that a bit and think, well, what's really essential and where can I save money? And that's what worked for me. Because then I had that sort of, well, I know that I'm secure. I'm not taking that step into the unknown, and I don't know where that next step is. I'm just going to keep dropping. I was like, I kind of know where that step is. That level of security, and you can have that level of security because you might be like, what, I can start this off as a side hustle. I can start my business off as a side, and if you can't do that, you can be like, well, actually, I can go part-time on my job or get a part-time job so I can focus on this, and that will just bring some money in. And it won't be the level of money that I want or on, but it doesn't matter. It means that I'm sufficient enough to be able to continue on my dream. And that's what I kind of did. And that's what I think is really, really important. Don't just be like, oh, right, I'm going to quit my job and I'm just going to decide what I'm going to do, because that's not going to work either. And that puts extra pressure on you. And that extra pressure means that it's setting yourself up almost for a failure, because you'll put so much pressure on yourself. Like, I have to make this work. I have to make this work. This is what I need the money, that it will just be too much for you. You don't need that added pressure. Alleviate some of the pressure by having, whether it's your savings, whether it's a loan or whatever it is, or whether it's that actually I'm going to go part-time and get some part-time income in. And then it's sustainable. And just, you have to make sacrifices. I was saying to someone the other day, people who start their own business, they don't think they're going to be living the high life straight away. What they do is they make those sacrifices and they put in the hard work. A lot of people don't see that, is they put in the hard work that you may not see. Success isn't like that. It's hard work. And that's what's key, whether you see it or not. But that is what people are doing. People who are successful are working hard. They've done the graft. So those are my tips.
Also, not afraid to do the graft, right? Not afraid to do the things that need to do. So like you said, when you set up your own business, so I remember setting mine up 20 years ago, and at the time I was 22, 23. So I'd done the whole education route and then went corporate for about 6 months and then hated the politics. I just didn't like any of the sort of environment and stuff like that. So I said, I'm going to now just set my own thing up, and I'm not sure what it is, but I have an interest in technology. I have an interest in this, so I'm going to try this. And then you had to have a shop because there was no real internet as such. And what's interesting is that during that time, so remember 23, 24, I had a lot of friends and they were going out all the time partying on a Friday night. And I said, well, I can come out for a bit, but I can't because on Saturday I have to open the shop. And they were like, oh, it's fine, leave. And I said, no, because if I've made a commitment that I have to do this, I have to do this, right? That's my choice. So they're all like, oh, okay. And I said, I can't come out on Saturday because, I have to go to it. So, all those silly conversations you have as a 23-year-old. And what was interesting then, fast forward 10 years, is that then after 30s, I used to go on a lot of holidays because I was like, I've done my graph, my business is doing really well, so I now can take 3 or 4 holidays a year to go away. And then I'd ask my friends, do you want to come on holiday? And they'd be like, oh, I can't get any time off work. And I was like, do you remember the time when I now that graft is paying off for me because I can just live the way, I can build the life that I want to live. And I'm so happy that I made those sacrifices early that now, from then onwards, I never had to have to ever ask for a holiday or get permission from anyone. It was, do I want to go? Yes, I do. So I'm going to go. And I know that's a real small point, but it helped me a lot to show that discipline and that focus and that patience that it took to build was really worth it. It's like anyone, right? If even yourself, when you set something up that is your baby, you've molded it, it's growing in the way you want it to grow, there's such a fulfillment that you get that you won't get from any other role in terms of a job. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100% agree with that. 100% agree. My husband, during lockdown, when I've had to do client, because obviously during lockdown my kids were at home, and I was going a bit mental, when they were at home, and I was still trying to do work, and I was like, you know what, I need to give up on that and just be like, all right, let's do stuff together. And then what I did was, I just work at night. So I told my clients, look, you're more likely to get a response. If you get an email from me at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's because I haven't done any work during the day. Don't think that for these odd times, this is what's going to happen. I will be working odd times because of that. And I explained that to them before that. So they didn't have this expectation that when we go back to normal, they can email me at 2 a.m. and I'll be answering. So I basically said, that's what I'm going to be doing. And I literally, as soon as I put the baby to bed, as soon as I'd be like, I'm going to start working. And my husband said he was watching TV and he said, I looked across at you, you're busy on the laptop. He's like, but you love it. You enjoy it. I said, I do it because one, I have to do it. I would like to be relaxing now, but I can't because of the circumstances. But because it's growing my business, it makes it a lot different. And then if I was having to do that in my corporate job, I'd probably begrudge them, like, oh God, this is awful. But it was hard. It was hard working like that. But doing that because it's growing my business and I'm going to see the benefit of it makes a big difference. It does make a massive difference.
And I think also when you see, it's an extension of you, right? So your business is an extension of you and your values as a person. So if you want to be sure, if you say you're reliable, you have to be reliable. If you say you're going to reply to someone when you're going to reply, you have to do that because that's what's your reputation, right? And your reputation is you live or die by your reputation, right? As soon as that starts going down the pan, then almost you can say, I don't have a business anymore because I am not putting the right energy into it. I've seen that with so many people where they've set up a business and they've run it into the ground because they don't have any more energy for it. And I'm like, at that point, you have to say, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not the way I want it to be. That's especially for younger people, because it almost seems like you want to grow this thing called a business, but you want to do it in your time or in your way, as opposed to actually probably I remember at the start, there was 80% of my time was used up by things I didn't want to do. Like the admin, the paying the bills, paying up on time, make sure this is cleaning this, 20% was the things I enjoyed. But that 80% is what created the business that allowed me to have the life I have, right? So then slowly that 20% becomes 30, 40, 50, because you can start getting people in. Maybe you can start giving work out and start enjoying the time that you have. And then when you go away, I remember when I used to go away, I used to always have my laptop because I'd have to work. I'd have to send emails, do this. And my wife, And my wife used to be like, why are you at 2 a.m? We went to San Francisco, and I remember sitting on the toilet because that's the only room that I liked. I had to send some emails. It was crazy. And I said, now what's good is that now I'm not in that boat. I've changed everything, that I can actually go away and have some time. But I remember those early 10, 15 years, I had to be available because certain things only relied on me. Maybe that was my mistake, but they relied on me. So you do what you have to do. And then if you have no energy and you have no good thoughts or mindset to put into it, then you have to question, why am I doing this? Because like you said, if it's your business and you want to do it, you'll do whatever it is. So if you're missing that program or you're missing that party or that night out, it doesn't matter to you because you know there's a bigger purpose at hand, right?
Yeah.
So now moving forward, Amana, with your business, what do you think, what skills do you still need to grow, master, or learn to create the next version of yourself?
I think mainly about being able to, because with my business, it's reliant on me being the social media manager and me doing that. So the issue is I've already reached capacity basically, which is why I can, when you were saying something about, I can't remember what it was now, but what you were saying about, I was thinking, well, I can't take on extra business, and I'm very careful about the business I take on, because I could easily say to somebody, yeah, I'll take that business, I'll take that, but to do it to the standard that I want and that I know is going to be able to, is my reputation, I can't do that. And I have to say, actually, you know what, I've reached capacity now, I can't take anyone else on. So for me, I need to learn to, I've got an intern already, so I need to try and basically delegate some work and give some up. And that's quite hard when it's your own business, to be like, I'm going to give this to you and I'm going to let you run with it. So I need to do more of that, because growth only happens by, in my type of business, by basically taking on other people. I can't grow my business because I'm the one that does all the work. So in order for me to grow, I have to delegate some work and say, right, you know what, I have to spend the money to hire someone to say, you do that area now. That frees up my time. And that's how I see my business growing. I'm actually training at the moment in Facebook ads. So I'm trying to expand my business to say, well, I'm going to start learning Facebook ads. So I'm on a course at the moment where I'm learning all about Facebook and Instagram ads to be able to offer that service to current clients and to new clients as well, because perhaps then I'm looking at, I could concentrate on ads and hire someone else to do some of the social media. So that means I'm growing my business and turning it more into an agency. And that's my aim.
Yeah. And it's huge, isn't it, in terms of seeing that, having that vision to say, actually, I'm doing this right now, but in order for me to grow, these are the things I need to let go of. But it's letting go in the right way, isn't it? It's having someone mirror you. So I remember when I had my first member staff, he mirrored me for a year, seeing what I was doing. And then now, 15 years on, he's still with me. And, without him, almost, I'd be lost, really, because he's taken off so much off my plate that I can continue to do the things that I need to do, and he takes on all the other bits that I can't do and stuff, But I get that letting go, because that letting go part is huge, especially when you first start out, isn't it? Because this is my fingerprint, and I can't let this fingerprint.
Yes.
Right.
That's exactly it. And I'm saying to my, I'm trying to find the time to teach this intern all the stuff that she needs to know as well. That's quite difficult. And I've said to her, yeah, you can run my social media. And then I keep thinking, oh my God, I'm going to give up my social media to someone, I was like, oh, but I've got to do it, and she'll learn loads from it. That's the key thing as well, is that's what I want to do. I want to be able to teach people so that they can learn and gain that experience themselves. So I've said to her, yeah, she was so excited at the thought of it, and then I just thought, oh God, what have I said? but yeah, I was like, no, I'll give that up, because that takes a lot of my time, because it's marketing my own business. If I give that to her, and she'll learn loads from that without affecting the client work, so I can do the client work then.
And I think what's really nice to hear that is that you're giving an opportunity to someone else to grow as well, right? Because we can stand on their head, but in their day, we're doing their work and our work at the same time, right? But it's having that trust and that faith. So actually, I've taught you enough now. there will be mistakes you're going to make, and that's fine as long as it's within a certain realm. But then again, Amani, for you, it's letting that go, isn't it? Because you're never gonna grow. It's never going to grow if you just, be so precise with everything. There's, and then if one guy said to me, and which has always stuck to me, he goes, what you've always have to remember with having staff is that if they're not working for you, they'll be working against you. So always remember, there's always only going to be 95% that you can be happy with. That 5% you're going to have to let go. Else, if they were the replica of you, they'd be your competition, not your staff. So
that's true, actually. Yeah.
Right? Cool. Okay, so Amanda, as we head over towards the end of this conversation, there's a few more things I'd like the listeners to understand more about you. Okay. So the question is a little bit deeper, just about you as a person, but I think they always give a good insight, because I've always said I have an old school mentality in terms of people buy from people. I like certain people and I always do business with them, even though the structure of everything they do may not work, but I like them as a person. And I've always said that when you know someone as a person, you're more likely to be aligned with them or not aligned with them. At least you know them, right? The people listening, I'd like them to be aligned with you a little bit more, right? So what we're going to do, we've reached the end of your days, okay? So you're 100, 150 years in the future, and you've done everything you wanted to do. You've built your own social media platform, and everything is, you've had an agency, and your kids have grown up to be super kids and stuff. So, so everything has worked well, and now you're sort of at the end of the days. You've not got enough energy to speak, but you have enough energy to write down 3 words. Those 3 words have resonated with you and helped you all your life. What would those 3 words be for you?
Prayer, kindness, and drive.
And if you can go into each one a little bit so we get an understanding.
So prayer, that's a really important part for me, to be able to be grateful for what I have, to not just, it gives you more of a, not just this world understanding, it gives you bigger gratitude and all of that. So that's really important to me. The kindness is be kind to people, show kindness, share, it opens your heart to be kinder to people, and that only works in your own benefit. But kindness, I don't see kindness as just doing kindness for the sake of it's your own benefit. It benefits others, and it's just be kind to people. I don't see why people can't be kind. And drive is make sure it's more around motivation and drive, and make sure you have something that drives you in life. It doesn't matter what that is. Not every person is set out to be, the next Bill Gates, or, you don't have to be that, but have your drive and motivation, even if it be to go on my next holiday, I'm motivated to do the smallest of things, but without any motivation, it makes life dreary, and it can be hard for you. Having some motivation and drive really helps that.
I agree fully with all of those. It's nice to hear it from someone else's words as well, because it allows you to introspectively consider what you think about what's important to you, and that's why it's important that I ask this question. So thank you for that. Okay, and the final question is this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So we've connected you to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can hear you. They have no language barrier. They're all conscious, and they can hear everything you're saying. If I hand over this mic for the next 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world?
It would be to live life to its fullest. Stay as positive as you can about everything. Positivity will open more doors for you than negativity ever will. Be kind to people, show consideration and compassion and empathy for other people, because it will serve you well and it will serve them well, and it will make the world we live in a better place. And that's what we should all be striving to do, is to make this world a better place for all of us, not just for ourselves.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amana. Is there anything you'd like to add, or any information you'd like to give to the listeners before we go?
Just about that, if they are interested in what I do, to just get in touch. I'm at, you can find me on the socialfactorhq, or on all social media channels under the Social Factor HQ.
Perfect. And I'll be hooking up those on the show notes anyway. So after this, you can go into the notes and see Amana's contact details. So obviously, you can contact her if you need to. So at this juncture, I'd just like to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge, sharing the information, the wisdom you have, and hopefully people can take that away and it helps them in their life a little bit. So thank you again for taking the time out. I know, like I said, you have a young family and always time is precious. I know that. So just from my side, good luck with everything you're doing. Best luck with your business. I'm sure you're going to grow it hugely. And let your intention take a little bit more on and take a few more breaks. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problem at all. So just for everyone listening, this podcast was Bigger Than the Hustle. Before we go, just like to say, big energy leads to big thoughts lead to big ideas lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, thank you and goodbye.
Always be kind. I think, if you can just pass some kindness forward, and if everybody did that globally, the impact it would have would be so significant. And I don't even think we would be able to imagine how different things would be.